Advertising is an easy way to burn a lot of cash fast. I've learned that the hard way. So I think a lot of people are put off from horror stories, or they've dabbled in it themselves, lost a bit of money, and they just think it doesn't work. I didn't have a choice. What was my choice? My choice was go back to a 9-to-5 I hated to my core and I was unhappy with. In my head, I told myself I will endure whatever pain I have to endure to get to where I want to get to, because I do not want that life. I don't care what it costs, how hard it is, how much anxiety, fear, and sleepless nights I have. I'm going to figure this out. I don't care. So that's why that first 8 months of trying to find it, I went through that. Everything in business is 80% mindset, 20% strategy. And I just think most people don't have the mindset to get most strategies up and running. I think the realistic expectation is you have to be prepared every time you go into running an ad to lose.
Alexi, your transformation over the past few years has been absolutely extraordinary. You've gone from earning £1,500 a month to now spending multi-six figures on ads for your own business. What have you learned that most business owners never learn?
I've learned the basics very well. I think people get too caught up in the new flashy tactics and the fancy funnels and trying to change things up all the time. I've just got very, very good at the fundamentals and basics of advertising. I haven't got a secret hack, a secret formula that people haven't figured out. I've just stuck to the basics and rinse and repeat them, essentially.
You know what? To you, the basics are probably just kind of like yeah, of course I know this thing, but like, what are the basics that most people miss because they want this shiny tactic, they want this extraordinary, revolutionary thing? What are the basics that you've learned really well?
Yeah, I'd say the basics of good advertising are understanding your customer avatar to a very deep point. Best way to do that is through sales calls and understanding those and pulling them apart. And then the basics is just understanding the flow of the customer journey. So it goes ad to whatever your funnel is, to getting them onto a call, making sure they show to the call, and taking the call itself. Those are the basics. If you can get good at those parts and just nail those bits down, there's nothing else it really takes, especially when you're selling high ticket coaching, agency services, etc. There's nothing else you need to advertise successfully. So those are the core basics of advertising.
In your opinion, why do most business owners either not learn this or refuse to learn this about client acquisition?
I think there's a lot of fear around advertising. Advertising is an easy way to burn a lot of cash fast. I've learned that the hard way. So I think a lot of people are put off from horror stories, or they've dabbled in it themselves, lost a bit of money, and they just think it doesn't work. So I think people just don't give it enough time and don't give it the time and testing it needs to get it up and running. So they miss that little learning curve gap, which once they close it will just skyrocket their business.
So obviously we're talking about psychology of advertising. And what you're saying is most people don't have the stomach for it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is there like a false expectation out there that they think it should look one way, but it looks another, and then they're like, punched in the face? Or like, why do you think they never have that psychology of advertising?
Yeah, I think I was saying to you before this as well. It's a similar mindset to like when you're trading in the markets. Like there's an element of risk, and I think some people just aren't prepared to take that risk, because to make ads work, you have to spend and money has to go out before you see an immediate return. And there's so many elements to make an advertisement work. Yes, the ad can be good and you can get people opt in. Then you have to make sure they book in a call. You have to make sure they're qualified. You have to make sure they show for a call. Then you have to close the call. So it's also a big part of it is confidence and people's own belief in themselves and their ability to convert what comes from the ad. So I think those two things combined with the fear, and a lot of people just don't have enough exposure to those after steps of what comes from the ad, that I think they just get too much in their heads, they get scared, and they just get emotional about advertising, cutting campaigns early, spending, because there is a risk to it. So yeah.
Is there such thing as too early to start running ads?
To a degree, yes, but it's very rare. So when we're taking clients on for the agency, the people that we say we can't help are people who have never served clients before. Even if it's not even been a free trial. If you're right at the start of your business journey and you don't know who you want to target, especially for coaching, then we would turn those people away. Because if you don't understand your avatar, I can't find you someone that you don't know who they are. So that's the point where I say it's too early, but you can be very early still in your journey. What I mean by that is we helped a guy, he came to us, he was a month into his coaching business. He'd worked with free trial clients only, so he knew who he wanted to target, and he'd never made any money with his coaching. Within 4 months and only £300 a month ad spend, we got into 10K a month. So you can be early on, but there is a fine line between never having worked with anybody full stop and then just having a slight understanding about the avatar, and we can...
So let's go into this coach. Was it because I saw here you have relationship coach, leadership coach, career coach. Which one of those was that?
He was the leadership coach.
Okay, great. So what made that result happen? What caused that result for him to go from 0 to
Yeah, good question. So one, again, I've said it already, is this understanding of the avatar, who he wanted to
So
target.
he knew his market.
He knew his market. We gave him a simple flow of like the customer journey. So we did the follower ads. I don't know how familiar you are with them, but I find for early on business owners and early on coaches, like they're the easiest to...
If someone already follows you, you can retarget them basically.
No, new followers. So you run ads.
So boost
for new,
ads.
yeah, you
get
run
a new
ads
follower,
for new followers, DM them, book them in for a call, obviously have a sales call. They're the easiest for newer people to get into advertising because it's easier to get right. Like when you do ads to a VSL to book a call.
So you're boosting an ad or like a reel or an ad, gets you a follower. From the follower, is there like a automation that messages them, or is he manually messaging them?
Yeah, so initially he manually messages them. Reason for that is because that opening message that you send to people from when they follow has an impact on the response rate. And so you can't automate it if you don't know if it works. So then he manually messages them. We gave him a simple flow to book them in for a call, exchange of 4 to 5 questions, and then they jump on a call. Simple as that.
When that person kind of now starts to get some money in the bank, and let's just talk about like best case scenario, they hit 6 figures in their business. Does the psychology of running ads ever kind of just become second nature, or is there always that fear, just like with trading? You said you've had some friends that do trading.
Yeah.
You never really overly get confident, and then if you do, you learn the hard way. Is it the same thing with ads? Like, now we've run ads, we've made money, so now we're just happy to throw money away, or like does that mindset continue?
I think the fear with running ads always stays a little bit because, for example, for this guy who's spending £10 a day on ads and he got to 10K a month, as he naturally increases his spend, his costs will go up. That's just advertising. The more you spend, it gets a bit more expensive every time you increase it. So what I see a lot of the time is as people make more money and they try and reinvest into their ads, they then get scared because the numbers jump a little bit. So the biggest thing that people miss is they don't run their numbers or understand the maths of advertising. Adverts, like if you take away the emotion from it, it's just numbers on a spreadsheet, figuring out, does this mathematically make sense? Because all you're doing is you're buying customers. So what you need to figure out is, am I on track to buy customers profitably? And most people miss that part and they jump in and they make those changes. So I don't think the fear ever truly goes. I think you just suppresses and you get better at the understanding and the maths of it and the mindset of it. So you're able to manage that rather than completely eliminate it, if that makes sense.
I want to dig deeper into this fear, and I don't really want to just talk about the fear, obviously, I want to move on. It does raise a question, which is, like, what is the alternative? So, for example, let's say you're on a sales call, they say, you know what, Alexi, I can't do this, it's too scary, I don't want to waste my money. But then they get off the call and don't sign up. Like, what's the alternative that's keeping them stuck anyway as a result of this fear?
Yeah, in terms of alternative way to get clients.
That's keeping them stuck.
Yeah.
Or unless they find something else that does work for them and they come back and say, oh, thank God I never signed up for your ads.
Yeah.
But like, because here's the thing about fear, right? So you're afraid to do something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go, well, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But then you stay stuck most of the time, unless you kind of like find some sort of magic pill or the limitless pill or something.
Yeah.
Let's say people are scared. Your audience right now are looking and going, yeah, that's me. I'm scared to shit to like run ads, but I can't overcome my fear and I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to do this instead. What is that? Like the definition of insanity. What is that? What is the alternative thing that people are doing that's not working?
Yeah, it's either relying on organic content or doing cold outreach. For most coaches, cold outreach is just retarded, to be honest with you. Like when you're targeting like a niche audience, like for example, one lady I helped, she was like a trauma coach. You can't outreach people to see if they've got trauma to try.
You like going through trauma?
Yeah, like that's just not going to work. And then again, same thing with cold outreach. Like most people I speak to just don't, with organic content, sorry, most people just don't have the skill set, unfortunately, to be able to put out the volume and quality of content that's required to get the eyeballs and to get the quality of eyeballs as well. So that is it. I mean, especially with coaching specifically, which is the main thing we help in, that is your only other option. And I mean, I had a lady the other day who signed up with us. She posted content for a year straight, nothing. Finally decided like, right, enough was enough. Got her ads up and running. Within the first week, she was spending £20 a day. She got 9 discovery calls. She hasn't taken them all, but she messaged me yesterday. She got 1 sign up already. She hasn't taken all the calls. And that was within a week of advertising compared to a year of posting content.
And the thing about content is the safer option up front for most people, because people would rather pay with their time than pay with their money. And I'm not going to get into the psychology that we've been conditioned about, the power of money and all that's keeping us broke. That's for another day. But people do like to pay with their time because they feel like it's a safer option. but the safer option usually leads to them having an unsafe life,
Yeah.
which is they can't afford what they want to afford and their business not working and they quit. Why do you think business owners think that way though? They think, let me build an audience before I run ads. Why do they think that way?
It's a good question. I think, again, it comes down to they don't understand ads enough and they don't understand actually how they work. And because of that, it's just easier to just post content. Like you say, it's a safe option. You can do it for free. You can put it up. You can edit it yourself if you really want. And even if you get a team to edit a month's worth of reels, it feels safer than posting content because you can see directly
like
what you're getting. Yeah,
it looks good.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks good. But yeah, it just doesn't get you that traction. Well, for some people it does. But if you look at the amount of people posting on social media, there's such a small fraction of people that are actually getting success with their organic efforts in terms of a consistent client flow. And again, as well, a lot of people aren't made to just post content all the time. A lot of people don't want to post content all the time.
I was gonna touch on that. It's thoughts that you read my mind. Do you think there's something deeper behind why people hide behind content?
I think it just comes down to the mindset and the safety and the fear. I think this is what this all stems from as to why people don't advertise or why they post the content. You get an immediate output that you can see from posting that content, but with the ad, you can put all that effort in, setting up the campaign, creating the ad, preparing yourself for the back end flow. And it can take a bit of time till you get a sale through the door. So I think it all does come down to this psychological thing of safety. And like one thing that one of my first mentors taught me that I still stand by to this day is like everything in business is 80% mindset, 20% strategy. And I just think most people don't have the mindset to get most strategies up and running.
Or they have the mindset that of, again, this is not a fact, but in 2026, hopelessness is the new, power strategy. It's like, oh, I put out content, but my content's good, but the algorithm's shit. And that's why I didn't succeed. Yeah. And it's like this avoidance thing of like, well, the opposite is success is not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. And most people don't want to admit that, they're not being as resourceful as they want to be, and they can always blame it on something else like an algorithm. Yeah. And now it's almost this person's fault or this thing's fault, not mine, which makes them feel better at the end of the day. So potentially that could be one of the things. So then let's talk about, someone who does run ads. What is their realistic expectation to set? Because I'll tell you why. A lot of internet marketing today is selling, get rich quick schemes. Hey, we'll run you an ad and you'll become a trillionaire in 6 days. And if you don't become a trillionaire, then we'll keep working with you and all that. But what is the realistic expectation for someone that's maybe ran ads and got burnt, and now they're like, you know what? I'm not even the guy who's scared to run ads, but I've run ads and I did it with some charlatan. Now I'm burnt. And now, I've got a sour taste in my mouth and I don't want to do it again. What's the realistic expectation? I
think the realistic expectation is you have to be prepared every time you go into running an ad to lose. You have to be prepared to lose. I think a lot of people, especially like you say, a lot of people are selling these get rich quick schemes. They sell it like a magical superpower that just, you turn it on and imagine you've got 20 million customers just at your doorstep. You have to be prepared to lose. That's the first expectation you have to be understanding. But the second thing is that once you've got the right strategy in place and you track the numbers, you will see that it will come through. Sometimes it's not an ads issue, it's a sales issue. So it's also about the expectation is be prepared to lose, be prepared that it won't happen immediately all the time, and be prepared that there's a sales cycle. So you will need to commit some budget before you end up seeing a return off the back of that. But if you go for a process that's proven, been tried and tested, you can even speak to people that have gone through it, they will tell you the exact same things. They didn't just turn it on and they've got 100 grand in the bank. There was a bit of a learning curve. There was a bit of testing. There's a bit of money that needs to be spent on the front end. But it does, if you stick through it and you trust the process that's worked. I've been doing this 4 years now. I've never worked with anybody and they've stuck with the process, followed through with everything that I've said that hasn't got the result. Fine, for some people it's taken a month for it to land. For some people it's taken 2 months, a bit of testing. But this stuff works for a reason. If somebody else doing what you want to do, it will work for you if you give it enough time as well.
You touched on something implicitly. So what is usually the characteristics of your highest successful customer versus maybe not your customer, because all your customers are winning, but someone who's failing at ads? What's usually the characteristics of what's the avatar of the successful client that runs ads?
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind when you say that is resilience. Resilience to trust themselves, to trust the process, to go through the testing and learning phase and just allow that to play out. I think that's the main thing. It's the mindset. I've worked with some absolutely amazing coaches who have done well, but not as well as they wanted to financially. And I've worked with some coaches who are good, but not as good as the amazing coaches who has done 10 times better.
Unpack that a little bit more. So like, the best performing client who did the best they could have possibly done versus someone who just did okay. What does successful person understand that this one doesn't?
Yeah.
Specifically.
It's the fact that to make more, you need to spend more. Because the one that does okay versus the one that does excellent is they could have the same budget. They could be getting the same return out of it, but the okay one doesn't want to spend more because it feels scary, or they don't want to put more into ads. They don't understand that mathematically, if you spend more money, you will make more money. Whereas the one who's more successful, it sounds so simple, but it is so simple. But it's the mind behind it that stops it from working. The one who's having more success with it is, okay, I understand that if I'm putting X amount of money in, I'm getting X amount out. So if I spend X amount more, I'll get X amount more out of it. So that's the main difference between the clients that I've seen. Because I've had 2 clients who've been getting the same return on the same spend, different niches, different markets. One of them refused to up their spend because they couldn't take that next step of spending more money, even though they'd still be profitable. And the other person was like, all right, I trust you, let's do it. And they ramped it up and they doubled their income, they stayed the same. Doesn't mean they were doing bad, but they held themselves back just through that.
Yeah, so does that come back down to then something that has nothing to do with ads or nothing to do with coaching or nothing to do with anything apart from money mindset?
100%. I've got clients that if they wanted to, they could have got to 100K a month with their coaching business and with the ad spend that they were on, but they themselves weren't mentally prepared and didn't have that, like I say, money mindset in general to ramp up the spend and take it to the next level. It all comes down.
So if you don't have that then, and you're somebody who wants to run a business, you've tried the organic route, it's made you hate life, and you're like, you know what, I don't have that money mindset, but I really want to have it. And a lot of people sit there and think, you know what, I don't have this thing, but I really want it.
Yeah.
What would be like a entry level? What's the first step that you could advise them on that would get them into the game? That's the hardest part, isn't it? Getting into the game.
Yeah, for sure. I would say just start with a really low budget. Just do something that is just low budget, low risk, and just start spending and just get a process that's worked and start spending and just start seeing a couple calls come in, a couple sales, and just understand, do that and look at your numbers and understand the maths. As soon as you're in the green, treat that money that's come from that in the green as it's not yours. Put that straight back into the ads. So technically you're not at a loss. You're in profit overall, and that money's that's come into your account, just don't count it as yours. Count it as more ad spend and just use that budget to reinvest and to slowly up it. So what you already had in that pot to invest stays there, and you just build on it and you just reinvest that. And that's the best way to slowly creep it up and ramp it up. But there's no other way to do it apart from doing it. You can read 1 million books on money mindset. You can watch podcasts. You can do all of this rubbish. Just the only way to do it is to actually do it. Start small, get some profit, and then reinvest that and build it back up that way.
Great lessons there. So number 1 is just get in the game with something small. Doesn't have to be something crazy. The other one's actually interesting. Reminds me of a book I read a very long time ago called The Richest Man in Babylon. Really good book, very classic. Talks about like what most people do is they make money and then they just spend it. Whereas really you want to make money, then make the money make money, then make the money that made money make money.
Yeah.
And then, that way it's a good way to think about it actually. So random side note, but I was one of the people that got hacked for my Ripple wallet. Ripple coin, there was this massive thing that happened. And the number that was stolen was more than 6 figures. But I only put in £225. And the day it happened, people were like, oh man, like that must hurt, man. I'm like, not really, it's 220 quid. And that's just the way I thought about it. That's what kept me sane. Whereas other people would be like, oh, but it was like 6 figures and how did this happen? And why wasn't my authenticator on? So I guess it's the way you look at things. It's like, you don't have to focus on 100K ad spend or someone like yourself doing £750 a day. You just have to focus on getting in for what feels reasonable for you.
Yeah.
Making that feel safe. And then after you make some money, stop thinking of the money as your money. It's just like the business's money and it's there to reinvest. And now you're in the clear. You can still go and buy your Subway without starving or anything.
100%.
So that's very interesting. So then let's dive into your coaching clients. So what makes an ad campaign work fundamentally, like the mechanism behind it? What makes an ad work? Is it the creative? Is it the copy? What makes an ad work?
The biggest thing is the copy and the call out and how you're speaking to your avatar, the messaging. So if there's a strong enough pain point, so there's a strong enough thing that they're running away from and a strong enough thing that they're running towards, and you can display that and portray that in an ad, very clearly, that's when the ads perform the best. They're the best clients that I work with. They get the best results when they've a lot of emotion, because emotion makes people take action. So, and the way you structure that in the ad, you have a call to action, which calls out that emotion, that avatar, and that goal they're trying to get to. You do a description of their situation, and you do a simple call out of what you want them to do off the back of that ad. In terms of actual advertising itself and an actual ad, a simple video ad that feels like a piece of content, just very casual, very generic, but being very specific to the avatar. Those are the ads that we see perform the best.
Is there something that is the equivalent, like, you know, you said success is 8% psychology, 20% mechanics, or if we could flip that, you know, the Pareto principle, 20% of your activity usually gives you 8% of your results. What would be the equivalent in ads that is like, what's the 20% that makes the 80% tick in ads?
It's the messaging. So it's just understanding the avatar. Simple as that. If you know who you're talking to and you can describe their situation and you understand their pain and their emotions in detail and you can verbalize that, you can have a crappy creative that looks rubbish. Some of the ads that bless her, one of the ladies that we helped, the relationship coach, I put on there, she did £450 in ad spend. She returned, I always remember the number, 17,435 off the back of that within a month. Her ad, the actual visual of it, was pixelated. She recorded it on a Mac. Like, it just wasn't good, but it was like, let's just get something up and test it. But because what she was saying in the ad and the messaging and the way that she was calling out her avatar was so spot on, no one cared about the visual because they were like, oh my God, that's me. And she got like an insane lead flow off of that.
You're touching on something that is something that drives people insane. And I have to be honest, sometimes it drives me insane because a lot of people are working on their messaging. You know, they're trying to like understand the hook and they're testing hooks and then they're understanding the story of the body and, like what's this person's pain? What's their pleasure? And they're still coming up short. You know, I've had this myself. I'll work on a hook for like God knows how long. Then I'll be talking to my friend. He'll be like, your hook's weak. I'm like, that's after I worked on trying to make the hook good. Yeah. So like, what's a good way to get better at your messaging for those people that are like, I'm already working on my messaging, it's not working?
To be honest with you, the best way to do it and the most way to have reassurance in your messaging is just speak to clients. Speak to your clients, speak to your past clients, existing clients, and just create short surveys, ask them questions, and just use their words as the hooks. Because for your messaging to work, it needs to feel like you're speaking to them or you're using their language. The best way to do that is to leverage the people that you've worked with, whether that be on a free trial, whether that be paid clients, whether that be the client you worked with a year ago. Just ask them. And most people don't realize that just by asking clients and asking them questions about the messaging and the angle, that's all you need really to create a good foundation of your messaging.
Most people that watch this usually have clients, but maybe we could spend 60 seconds on what if someone says, I don't have any clients.
If you don't have any clients, then the best way to do it is to, unfortunately, you have to hustle a bit to get some clients. You can't create messaging off of your...
What does hustle mean? Is that like direct outreach content?
Yeah, it might, not so much content, but leveraging your network, going on platforms where they've got like directories where you can go on and do that, or offering free trial work, whatever you can do just to get a couple of people through the door. That's one way. The only other way is to leverage your story. If you're selling from a place of experience, then you were once the avatar. Ask yourself, reflect back 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Where were you? What were you struggling with? What did you want at that point in time? What was your pain point? That at the start, if you're at zero, they're the only two ways to clear your messaging. You either were the messaging and you need to take some time to think back, or you have to go out there and hustle a little bit. Like I say, maybe that's outreach. Content, there's no point in terms of if you...
What have you got against content, eh?
My friends tell me off as well for not posting content. But I think for me, like I've built up to where, like I said, I used to earn £1,500 a month from 9 to 5. I now spend £750 a day on ads. That's without paying my team and like everything else, right? I've done that barely. If you look at my page, I get about 10 to 12 likes a post.
Yeah.
All of my growth and success has come from advertising. So the thing I've got against content is that, don't get me wrong, I do think it's a powerful tool. And I think if you use it in the right way, it can help with your ads. But I think people go too far the other way where they rely on it. And I'm like, just from my experience, I'm like, you don't need to spend hours recording and posting and hoping somebody turns up. If you've got a good ad system, you just turn it on. Like for me, like...
So it's just speed. So your thing is just, give me the result, give me it now for the least amount of effort.
Yeah, why wait? If you've got something that works and can get you clients.
So you're basically saying this, and this makes me laugh a little bit because some people are like, well, no, you got to put content out. So you're saying, look, if you don't have any clients and you're struggling, don't even worry about content. Just get straight into ads. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not saying don't have a social, like with our clients, say we have people that are at Bang Zero. So this relationship coach that I mentioned to you, she came, she didn't even have a page. She had like, she had a profile, but it was no content, no profile picture, 23 followers. We put on there a bit of content to position her as like the expert if people came and looked at her.
So just have like an optimized profile.
Yeah, have an optimized profile, but you don't need to like...
But don't hide behind the content.
Exactly.
I think, because I don't necessarily agree completely with not having content. I think, you have to have sign of life.
I agree, yeah.
And I don't like this word because it presupposes that you're manipulating or you're lying, but you have to have some sort of smoke screen. Yeah, so it's like, I'm posting daily, I'm alive, I'm active, and then on this end, I'm running my ad. So then let's say you run an ad and people want to, research you, then they go onto your profile and go, oh, he's alive, he's not dead.
Yeah.
This is a real thing, and it gives them more confidence in the fact that, well, this person's putting in the effort, I believe it. Versus, I've had it where I've seen a really, really good ad. There's nothing to be known about this human being or company. I'm like, I don't really know. And can they get me the result? Can they not?
Yeah.
So I'm a mixture of both kind of guy.
Look, I mean, when I say I don't like content, I mean like relying on that for acquisition and just doing that and nothing else.
Solely, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. There is a balance. Like you do need a presence.
Yeah.
And if you didn't need that, I would tell my clients, just don't even have a page, just delete it. But I do get them to build like an optimized foundational page that does that touch point to give their people the reassurance. Because more and more now, because trust is killed from people that advertise falsely and just sell a load of nonsense, like people do come and visit the profiles, etc. So yes, you need something there, but I don't believe, just from my experience and how I've grown over the years, you don't need content alone, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that the challenge is in the definition of insanity, where some people are not even doing content, but we're not even talking about those people just yet, because we're talking about someone who's at least doing something, man.
Yeah.
Some people are just like, oh yeah, I don't do nothing. Yeah. They're just like praying.
Yeah.
Praying is good, but we're talking about people that are doing content, it's not working, and they're just doing nothing else. They're not even considering ads. Then, you have to have a mixture of both, or you want to have a mixture of both, or you could just do ads but have some sort of presence on this end. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Let's dive into before all of this, because I know that it wasn't always like this. You didn't always have clients, didn't always have a business. As I said at the beginning of the opening question, at one point you was earning 1,500 quid a month. What was life like back then? Yeah,
very different. It's crazy how quick it changes. I mean, I used to work a 9 to 5 in the city of London. I was a project manager. They'd pay for me to go to uni as well. So I was doing a degree apprenticeship, and then £1,500 a month. And life then was very unfulfilling. I was very lost. I didn't have much purpose. What
was a day in the life like?
Day in the life
where you were
before I started the business was, Monday to Friday, get up, go to London, do my 9 to 5 job. If I wasn't in London, it'd be roll out of bed 10 minutes before I have to log onto my laptop, sit in my home office all day and just wiggle the mouse till I didn't get told off. I'd do 1 day a week of university, and then the weekend I'd go to I've always been into my training, so I'd always go to the gym in the evenings, and the weekend was just go out and get drunk. That was it. That was my life on loop.
Finding the answers at the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what was like the moment that you just felt like this can't keep going on? Because I've got a construction background too.
Yeah.
And I know people that were probably twice mine and your senior that just accepted that life, worked Monday to Friday, found the answers at the bottom of the bottle on Saturday, Sunday, come back Monday, and they just lived like that forever. But obviously you didn't do that. What was that moment that made you think, I can't be doing this anymore, I need to pivot, do something else?
Yeah, I had two sort of colliding events that made me change. So the first thing was obviously the job. I just got to a point where I was 4 months into the role. I was like borderline, felt like I was going to be depressed if I carried on going on this path. I was unfulfilled. I was unhappy. I was looking around, like you said, at the people senior in the role, and I was like, I do not want to be like that. That was one element of it. And the other element of it was I had lost a lot of family members and a lot of undealt with grief as well that I had just, like I say, hadn't dealt with, and it was just hanging over me. And I got to a point, December 2021, where both of those things just really struck me at the same time. And I just kind of hit an all-time low. I spent the whole month in bed, literally, I'm not exaggerating, the whole month in bed because I was ill, because I just couldn't handle it all. I was just emotionally drained. I was just done. And then the start of 2022, I was like, right, I need to make a change. I don't want to live my life like this. I don't want to be stuck in this dead-end, unfulfilling job. I want to do something purposeful with my life. And off of the reflection of all the people that I lost, I was like, life's short. I've got to make the most of it. So that was my turning point where I was like, I'm going to do something about this.
What made you arrive at the thought that I'm going to start a business. Because honestly, it's a polar extreme to go
Yeah.
from 9 to 5 starting a business, because it's just an interesting experience for anyone who's tried it. So, but what made you think, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go and start a business?
Yeah, well, I looked at the life I wanted to have, and I wanted freedom, I wanted finances, I wanted flexibility, and I just knew that a 9 to 5 wasn't going to get me there quick enough. And then researching online, looking online, I've always felt like I've had an entrepreneurial mindset. I've always had like little side
Anyone in your
hustles.
family was an entrepreneur?
No, not necessarily, no, but I've just always, I don't know, I've just always had a lean towards wanting to be an entrepreneur and having my own thing. So I think I just understood, like, look, if I want to make good, decent money here in a decent amount of time, I have to be the boss. I have to do my own thing. I have to take control of my own life rather than...
Was there anyone in your life that was the boss, took control of their own life?
Yeah, my dad was a big inspiration for me. He was born and raised in Athens. They didn't have much money when they grew up, and Athens isn't, or Greece in general isn't an overly wealthy country. And his story was quite cool and inspired me quite a lot, because he went from like telling me stories of how if he wanted a new pair of shoes, he just had to paint his current shoes a different color.
No way.
Traveling
them
hours.
Stories.
Yeah, stories like that. To he moved himself to London, and he's one of the best in London at running hotels, luxury hotels. So he went from nothing to something, and he took control. And fine, at that time, the 9 to 5 corporate route was the standardized route, and online business obviously wasn't really a thing at that point in time. But for me, that was very inspiring, that he just got up and he took control and he made it happen. And I think for me, that even though it's a different path, the principle of it inspired me a lot, that actually, if he's gone from there to here, he's given us an amazing life, I should be doing that myself. And I felt like I was doing him an injustice if I didn't do something like that as well, if that makes sense. I'm like, if he can do that from there, I can do it from here.
That makes a lot of sense. And honestly, my background's from Lebanon. I feel like if we didn't have this spirit, then everything our parents did was in vain. And some people might get upset at me saying this, and I'm not talking about not having a 9 to 5. Like, you can have a 9 to 5 and still be successful. But what you just mentioned there, like your dad had to paint his shoes just to get new trainers. He's come to this foreign country, it is what it is. And he's probably had to go through a lot of leaving his family, leaving his hometown, all this stuff, just to provide you, or in my case, my dad, to provide me a better life. And then you just have people that are just going to like be stale, like be stagnant and accept mediocrity.
Yeah.
You basically had him as an inspiration, and you thought, you know what, there's no way I can do this to this guy. He's put it all on the line. I got to put it all on the line. That's what it sounds like happened.
Yeah, it was a big part of me. I was like, in my head, I was like, what kind of man am I if I don't live up to that or follow in those footsteps? I found it very inspiring. So I was like, what am I doing? Just sitting here. And I'll go back even more. I hear more stories of like my grandparents and things like that in Greece, and dealing with stuff with the World War and like fighting off the Germans. I'm like, what am I going to do? Sit in 9 to 5?
That generation had to work hard, like they did have to work hard. I mean, today, let's be real, man, like business is not easy. I don't know, I'm not going to speak for you, but I don't think I'm working hard. Like, I've worked hard when I was on site.
Yeah.
What is required today to become successful? It's like when we started talking about psychology, it's like you just have to work smarter. You have to be able to be, outcome driven. It's not hard. It's not hard labor. Like people had to do hard labor before, but now it's like you just have to know what you want and know why you want it, and then find a route to get there, and then move. Like that's literally it.
I agree with you. It isn't hard at the end of the day. Fine, there's hurdles you have to overcome. You have to go through learning curves. You're going to make mistakes. Mentally, you're going to need a bit of resilience. Fine, but like in the grand scheme of things, like again, if I think back, like histories of my grandparents and great-grandparents fighting off the Nazis, parachuting down into Germany, that's into Greece. That's hard.
Yeah.
Running ads on social media isn't hard. Fine, you go through challenges, but like, come on, like just go through it, go through the paces. When I look at it in that perspective, I'm like, just shut up and get. I said to myself, shut up and get on.
I can't help but think of this image of today versus then. Like now, people's hard is, the milk's normal, not oat milk or something. You know what I mean? We're in an interesting time. But I'm not going to go there, but. So going back to this, so you're there, you're laying there, you're thinking, I've got to do better. My dad's an inspiration, consciously or unconsciously, you thought that. So then what were the steps you took that kind of got you to move into this different direction that built today's life?
Yeah, so I first started looking at, okay, right, I want to run a business. Let's look at different business models. What can I remember I didn't even know what I could sell. So I thought, could I buy and resell, use golf balls, clean them up, like little stuff like that? Do I start a car detailing business? I didn't know where to start. I had no experience. I mean, I'd sold cookies in the playground at school, and I did a little side hustle at one point where I took apart Xbox controllers and spray painted them and resold them. But I was like, I don't know what to do. So I started looking and researching, and love him or hate him, but I came across Mr. Andrew Tate, and he was the one that introduced me and opened my eyes to the online business space, because I didn't know that was a thing. He was the one that opened me up to that. And then I signed up for an affiliate marketing course off of the back of what I'd heard him saying. I made a little bit of cash with that, but then I didn't see it long-term what I wanted to do. Then I fell into copywriting and started learning a bit of that. And then it was actually a friend who I worked with in my 9-to-5 with. And he was like, oh, I found this course. It's to do with marketing online. It's a marketing agency. The business model, apparently it's really good. It's working well. Like, look at this guy, he's successful, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, let me look into that. And it kind of, the copywriting and the affiliate marketing sort of tied into that, what I'd learned. And I just kind of stumbled. I just looked at different things, researched, see if it made sense, tried a few different things. And I think naturally it took me 8 months of trying and testing and research until I stumbled across that business model. I found it and it just
I just want to pause you there, because obviously it's your experience. You're like, yeah, I tried for 8 months. Most people try for a month and give up. What kept you going for those 8 months?
I didn't have a choice. What was my choice? My choice was go back to a 9-to-5 I hated to my core and I was unhappy with.
So the pain of the 9-to-5 was way greater than the pain of things not working out immediately.
100%. It wasn't, in my head, it wasn't a choice. In my head, I told myself, I will endure whatever pain I have to endure to get to where I want to get to, because I do not want that life. I don't care what it costs, how hard it is, how much anxiety, fear, and sleepless nights I have. I'm going to figure this out. I don't care. So that's why that first 8 months of trying to find it, I went through that. And there was more of that. It kept going. I mean, even when I started the agency, like the first 18 months were crap. Like I barely made any money. I got clients, I lost clients. It took me 6 months to get my first client. I couldn't even sell a free trial service. That's how crap I was at the start. Then I got some clients, got them results, and I lost them. I went back to zero. And like that first 18 months was torture. It was absolute mental torture, because I was like, what do? I can't go back to this job. I was still in it, but I was like, I can't rely on, this can't be this isn't an option, and I can't figure this out. What do I do? And there's so much, it's just, like I said, 80% mindset, 20% strategy. That is all it is. And it was just mental resilience and torture that first time to get it up and running. But that to me was worth more than going back and relying on that job.
It's crazy, the interesting use of words, torture. I think going back to what I asked you about expectations, I think the real expectation is that you might go through torture in order to get to where you're trying to go.
Yep.
Because just like the caterpillar, it has to go through a struggle to eventually get some wings and fly. And most people just want to fly, but they don't want to go through the struggle.
100%.
So it sounds like you, understood the stakes, which is, I think, a huge part of what made you keep going, because you didn't think it was going to be easy up front. Yeah. And I think going back to Andrew Tate, love or hate him, he is actually brutal. He just says, look, it's not going to be fun. So I think in some way he set the stage for you to think, this is not easy.
Yeah.
But I'm a man. As a man, I've got to do X, Y, Z thing, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
So then, what was that moment where it began to work that you thought, I'm onto something. This is amazing. Like, boom, double down. What was that moment like?
And it wasn't as far away as you might think it might be. It was January 2024. I signed up for my first mentor. It was a guy who was running a marketing agency doing 50K a month. And to me at the time, that was like, oh my God, that's fantastic. I remember his package was 4 months for 6K. And I was like, mate, I couldn't afford it. I just can't afford that. Like, is there anything you can help me with? And I'll always be grateful for him for doing this. He said to me, what can you afford? And I was like, the most I can do, which was the truth, was £400 a month. And he was like, fine, I'll do it for you to help you out. And that gave me the boost to be where I am. Without that, I wouldn't be where I am now today. He gave me that opportunity, and he got me up and running. He helped me close the gaps that I was missing. I hustled. I did cold emails to get my first few free trial clients. Again, like with the new thing that he taught me, I was like, let me just get free trial clients in exchange for a testimonial to build it up. And and then that was it. 6 months later, I left my 9-to-5, but that was my turning point in signing up with him, paying him all I could afford, and just being like, I've got to do it. I've got to make this work. Because at that point, I'd been, a year and a half into the journey, and I'd made money, I'd got people results, but I just hadn't cracked like the side of it to make it consistent for me. I was getting other people results, but I wasn't getting myself results. And I hadn't made enough myself to invest into my ads properly.
And then when you did have to start investing into your own ads, how did that feel?
That was scary. And that's why I understand it and why I can speak back on it. I was shitting myself. I remember when I first started my ads, I started low. All I could afford was £10 a day, £300 a month. That's all I could afford on my ads. I did that, and I remember my first month I did that, I got one client from it. So I was like, okay, I've got to build this. I was like, I don't have a choice. I don't want to do cold outreach forever. I need to start building this pot up. So I reinvested everything back into the ads. That's why I gave that piece of advice earlier, because I've done it myself. Reinvested back everything into the ads, got another client, done the same thing. And I remember there was one point where I built it up from £300 a month to 3K a month.
2 months.
No, it was
money.
Yeah.
From
the job.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. The psychology of that is people never really shake off this old identity. People start thinking, mate, I can't put in 2 months worth of salary in there. Because although it's no longer the case, sometimes you can't help but think, holy fuck, that used to be like 2 months of salary.
Yeah.
So that's
it was scary. And I remember there was months where I would put 3K into the ads and all I'd get back out was 3K.
Yeah, he's breaking even.
I was breaking even. I was like, shit. So I've got to do it again. 3K and 3K. And there was like a period where I was just breaking even. Then on the back end, I was getting some more sales and like recurring revenue, etc., whatever. But there was a few months where advertising was like a real like mental torture to a whole nother level, because I was like 3K in, 3K back, 3K in, 3K back. And the business pot wasn't really growing. And I couldn't figure out that little gap of like, how do I take this to grow? How do I get more off the back end of this? So it was a struggle for me to build it up. It was difficult, but I'm grateful I went through that journey, because now I can help people so much in advertising themselves and building that up, because I've gone through it as well, if that makes sense.
So what advice would you give from today to that Alexi of 2024? But really what you're talking to is the person who now is you there. Like, what advice would you give to that guy?
I would say understand your numbers better.
So you were just trying to brute force it, but you didn't have your numbers.
I didn't understand the numbers the way that I understood the numbers now. And again, like it's interesting when I say it out loud, like even just me reflecting on the own things I'm saying, like the advice I'm giving, it sounds so simple, but it is simple. That's why I said to you at the start, I just got good at the fundamentals, because that's all it is. Because my ads and my cost per booked call and the amount of leads I was getting weren't a million miles off what I'm getting now. The only difference is now is I understand the maths and understand what the numbers mean, so I can make better decisions. I can know what to do with the campaigns, which ones to cut, which ones to grow, etc. So yeah, if I could go back, it would be like learn properly the numbers and understand them, because that once you get them, if you've got them working and you're making money off of it, you can make more money off of it if you know how to navigate that. And the numbers is the biggest.
Going back to what we talked about a second ago, the 20% that gives the 8%, I think it is that most people are making emotional decisions versus data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
You know, there are times where I don't feel something is working. Then I go to the drawing board and it's like, oh, it's working. I just don't feel like it is.
Yeah.
And there's times where I'm like optimistic in the sky, and then I'm like, well, on paper, this doesn't
make sense.
This is shit. Like,
yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of pick that up through brute force, but then the lesson to someone listening to this and even to the old you is you don't have to be that person who's making emotional decisions. Get your facts straight, get the numbers straight. Is there anything else that you would give as advice that can make this journey, even if it's 1 millimeter simpler, easier, you know, less scary, if it is going to be scary anyway?
Yeah, it would be a sales issue isn't always an ads issue. So what I mean by that is a lot of people will be getting leads, will be getting calls, but they're not converting. And they revert back to the advert. The ad's not working, the campaign's not working. No, the campaign's working, you just can't bloody sell.
Which are two different skills.
The whole two different skill sets, but they combined make the ads work. And so for me, again, I can only talk from experience on this. I had moments where I'd be like, the ads aren't working. I'm not making sales. I'm not making enough of a return. And this was obviously at the start of my journey, but when I reflect on that, it's like, no, it's a sales issue.
That's another thing no one tells you about business, because you see, I come from a construction background. I've always had to sell somewhat. You know, I had my own construction company. But, you know, when I got into coaching, I just thought if you become the best coach on the planet, like it'll just, you know, people will just be like, you know, please sign me up.
Yeah.
And then I learned the hard way that no, like coaching is a skill. Sales is a skill. Lead generation is a skill. Marketing is a skill.
Yeah.
Content is a skill. Speaking is a skill. Like there's so many different skills that no one tells you about, and you just think, oh, I'm starting a coaching business, or I'm just starting a, you know, DIY business, or I'm starting a construction business. But so I think that's another thing, you know, going back to that question I asked you about what are the expectations, people should manage their expectations and realize that, you know, the ads is just the lead gen. Yeah. Now you got to nurture the prospect, you got to sell the prospect, and then obviously deliver the prospect. And if you're not that great at your job, most people don't like to admit it, the client's not going to stay.
Yeah.
So That's another expectation that people should manage, basically. Is that what you're saying?
100%. It's a big part of it.
So as we close up, I just want to ask you 2 questions then. What should a coach or a business owner do this week if they want more sales calls?
Run ads.
Yeah. And then even a tinier chunk than that, like what should they start doing to get started with running ads?
Yeah, I'll do a deep research on your avatar. Again, I'm going to keep saying it because it's the most important thing. Understand who you want to target and what drives them, what they're running away from, what are they running towards.
So understand your avatar.
Understand your avatar. If you're in B2C or B2C markets, typically follower ads are the best. So start understanding the principles of that. It's simple. An ad to send people to follow your Instagram page. You DM them, you book them in for a call, and you take the sales call. If you're B2B, then you're more looking at
One question there, actually, although we're closing up. How many creatives do you advise for this follower ad? Like, should you just do one reel and bank on all of that, or should you like split test?
Yeah, so with follower ads, you should only do one at a time. This is the only downside of follower ads. You can only really test one creative at a time because here's the reason why. It's all to do with the Instagram like tracking. You want to know what lead has come from what ad. Now, if you run via sell to straight book a call ads or whatever, you can use tools like Hyros and it will tell you exactly which ad has generated which call. So you can know which creative works, so you can run multiple at once. With follower ads, if you run 2 creatives at once, half the leads are crap, half the leads are amazing. You're going to not know who's come from what ad because the Instagram's cut that tracking of it. So you always run one because otherwise you're wasting budget because then you don't know which one do I cut. Do I cut both? And then you're starting again. So you run one at a time, make sure the quality is good. Then you add more creatives if it is, or you scale that creative. And that's how you do the follow ads.
You get really passionate when you talk about these ads, man. I
love these ads.
I wish I had your energy about ads and marketing.
Yeah, I love
I'm actually naturally, I do believe we will have a natural tendency and then something that's learned. Naturally, I'm like an artist. So I love coaching, speaking, talking, doing things like this. When it comes to this, I've learned to look at numbers. I've learned to do marketing. I've learned to do all the business side, the science side of business, but I don't get passionate about it. Yeah. I get passionate about when someone asks me like, how do I get someone to speak to? How do I get my client to do this? How do I get I'm the artist, right?
Yeah.
You get really passionate, man. Like, listen, blah, blah, blah. That's how you know a man's good at his job, when he gets passionate about what he speaks about. Most people just kind of like, they don't give you confidence in themselves because of how, they just die when you ask that question. So then where should people go if they want help with paid ads specifically from you?
Yeah, best way is to find me on Instagram. So alexandros.svaltos, probably best to put it in the description.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the description.
But yeah, best to go on my Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel, which is the same name as well. As I'm sharing insights on there also. So check me out on both of there. And then I've got, you can reach out to me, ask me any questions.
Yeah, and you can find him at evolute.co.uk. We're going to put this in the description, YouTube, Instagram. So the message is simple. Don't build a business that only survives on your algorithm. You want to make sure you have a proven track record for client acquisition. If you found this useful, click somewhere around here to watch the next episode. That's also going to give you more value. Stay limitless.